Oh, here we are on Sunday evening, the 14th of July in the year of our Lord. I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. 2024. By the way, it's Bastille Day, sort of an Independence Day for France. The storming of the Bastille during the French Revolution. Um, I'm not feeling very cheerful. Well, hi, Jason. Good evening. You have a dust storm and thunderstorm rolling in. Yeah, well, Arizona is beginning to get California's weather, but it's still hotter than Hades here. I gotta check something real quick. Oh, how interesting. Uh, Microsoft keeps putting different images on my desktop. Well, this is definitely an interesting time. It's said to be an ancient Chinese curse, but apparently that isn't true. But an ancient Chinese curse is supposed to be, may you live in interesting times. Uh, well, I'm having deja vu all over again. John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, the congressional baseball game, and the assassination attempt on a Supreme Court justice, and that weird attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer. So this is the fourth attempt on a president's life. John Kennedy, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, and Donald Trump. It's a miracle that he survived, but it's an even greater miracle that a shot got that close from, now they're saying 130 yards away. Uh, it just isn't likely, at all likely, that a 20-year-old with an AR-15 and a scope could even hit the target, let alone hit him in the head. A real sniper would shoot for the biggest area of the body, and that would still be a crapshoot because the target would be about the size of an ant from where the shooter was. Unless he had really expensive optics, and even then, a real sniper would shoot for the torso. Apparently, Trump was hit twice. A shard of glass from the teleprompter hit him in the chest, and a bullet took off part of his ear. Well, hello, Philip. Good evening. Hello, X. Oh, waterbed. Wish I had one, except I'd have a lot of trouble trying to get up from it. Always have had trouble, and now my back is just not cooperating with me. Well, even with the scopes they have, it'd be. How did a 20-year-old get hold of one? They cost a bloody fortune. Hi, Ditch. Good evening. I've been trying to just watch cooking shows, but that ain't gonna happen. It's everywhere. And Don Bongino, former Secret Service, and now, I don't know, I guess he's a podcaster. He says there's just no way that shot was anything but pure luck on both sides. And Vivek Ramaswamy says God intervened and saved Trump's life by having him turn his head at just the right moment. And according to at least two members of the crowd outside the venue, they were telling the police and the Secret Service, look, there's a guy on that roof crawling around with a rifle. And they ignored them. What's doom scrolling, Ditch? I have no idea what that is. I don't want a waterbed. I had one once, but I got tired of patching it. Cats just love to sharpen their claws on the waterbed. Looking for bad news? I was looking for cooking shows. I did get to watch 2 episodes of Anti-Chef. They were 3 years old, but I got to watch them. Oh, and I watched, I keep blanking on the guy's name. The cooking show where he has Frenchie on with him. And they were reviewing Uncle Roger's review of a Jamie Oliver red Thai red curry. Oh, Ditch says Freeman will be here soon. Good. Oh, well, I'm glad Freeman's able to talk for like 2 hours. This is more than political violence. You know, riots in the streets are political violence. This is assassination. I couldn't believe the headlines on the legacy news media. Trump rushed off stage after loud noises heard. And similar. Trump drops to the floor after loud noises heard. Philip. Yeah. Well, I suppose saying that word out loud might get me what is inspected or whatever. By the way, this is iodine on my face. Don't worry about it. That's why it looks all red there. Yeah, the kid was 20 years old, just graduated high school 2 years ago, and he's got the means to buy. No, he couldn't have the latest optics. Unless he was the heir to millions. Not likely. He went to public school. Well, he missed because Trump turned his head. If Trump had not turned his head, it would have taken out half his brains instead of his ear. Oh, hi, Juanita. Welcome in. Yeah, it's kind of late here, 9:37 p.m. But I had to wait for Verizon to give me enough bandwidth to come on live. Yeah, I'm fine, but I'm worried about uh, President Trump and everyone else. You know, one man was killed in that shooting. He actually blocked his wife and child to protect them, and he took the bullets. He was a retired fire chief, a volunteer firefighter, by the way. And why was anyone on that roof? Why wasn't the Secret Service on that roof? Or at least watching that building? And in the latest news, some of Trump's Secret Service was called off to protect Jill Biden at her event, same day, same time. So they put in some Secret Service agents to replace them, but they hadn't worked together before. And apparently, Trump had already asked for more protection, more agents, and it was denied. At least they didn't do an RFK and deny him any Secret Service. But if I were Trump, I would just hire my own security, and he can afford it. Of course, you could have both. In fact, some of the people there were Trump's security, in addition to Secret Service. And the Secret Service agents said the protocol they have to follow is you don't fire on the sniper until after the sniper has fired his or her weapon. Just in case you're really looking at someone with a telescope and not a gun. Really lying on his belly on the roof? The water's empty. Let me go fill it. It'll only take a few seconds. Ah. Oh, apparently, when they were the people in the crowd were pointing out the sniper, the police thought it was a Secret Service agent, and the Secret Service thought it was a policeman. There should have been a Secret Service or a policeman either on that roof or watching the building in case someone tried to climb up it. Oh boy. Oh yeah, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, wasn't he actually shot but didn't die? That's what happens when you disagree with the powers that be, apparently. Well, Philip, you have a wrench. So I know you're not being censored by a wrench, a moderator. You are the moderator. And I really appreciate my mods. You guys make it unnecessary for me to keep a close eye on the chat while I'm trying to think and talk. I'm telling you, this is very interesting time. I'm doing things wrong now. I'm usually crawling into bed at this time. Yeah, we get the rare troll, but most of the time the chat is just fine. Even so, I appreciate you keeping an eye on it. It's odd. Oh man. Anyway, I thought I'd better not leave you guys without a chat room on this crazy at this crazy time. I didn't hear a thing about it when it actually happened, but 3 hours later, I got my phone got all these YouTube notifications about the Trump rally. Oh well, I would have had trouble trying to listen to things live anyway because it was around 3:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday. Verizon really doesn't give me much bandwidth. I know there's another word. Anyway, the service sucks in the afternoon, especially on weekends. So some people were on live right away, but I didn't get to watch them live. Well, with JFK, I actually saw it on the television. The Los Angeles News had the video because there was this brand new technology called Telstar. So the television cameras in Dallas, Texas, sent their signals through a Telstar satellite, which actually belonged to the phone company. And they sent their signal through that satellite to the stations in Los Angeles. And they showed JFK being shot. Over and over, they showed it. So my deja vu includes video from the day of. I was 9 years old, a fourth grader. We had just started our lunch recess. And we'd eaten our lunches and were headed out to the playground when we were called to come back to the classroom. Everybody went out on the PA, the public address. Return to your classroom, and we were so upset at being deprived of our recess. But we obeyed and went back to our classroom, and one of our hall monitors, I found out later these kids who were made hall monitors were given the job because they were troublemakers and they wanted to keep them busy. Anyway, one of them brought in a color television and turned on the news for us. And we all watched the news while the office staff called our parents to make sure that it was okay to send us home. And when I got home, I was shocked. Yeah, my parents were Republicans, but mom just about she was glad. She was glad that JFK got shot and killed. That's sick. They were showing footage that you will never see. I don't know what happened to it. The camera was across the street from, okay, I'm blanking on the name again. Well, he was across the street from the, oh jeez, I can't think. Zapruder, where Zapruder took his film, was across the street from Zapruder. So in the footage I saw, Jackie Kennedy was in the foreground and JFK was behind her. Well, Freeman, hello there. Welcome in. Well, oh, Philip, Mom was not for the Soviet Union. She was a radical right-winger to the point of being almost left-wing, because the more extreme you get on the left and the right, the closer the extremists are to each other. But she hated the Soviet Union. Anyway, let me turn off the flashlight and save the battery. I can almost see the keyboard. Darn, I've tried all sorts of things, and that darn table lamp keeps blowing up my camera lens. Let's do that. Turn the camera away from it. Now let's see. And then move my chair over. So I'm in the frame. Okay, that'll work for now. Mom was just, well, the devil's sister. You know, so anyway, as Republicans, we didn't like JFK, but we were horrified by the way he was killed. Astro Boy, Walter Dean, sent me a photo on the messenger. The lost tribe of Clover Hollow. Oldest civilization in the world found in Appalachian Mountains? Anyway, we've been in the middle of an awful heat wave here. We rarely get temperatures in the 80s in these mountains. That's Fahrenheit. Okay, let me check. I'll need the flashlight now. 80 F2C. 26, almost 27 Celsius. But lately it's been in the 90s, and one day it got close to 100. Oh, Philip, Appalachia, those are the mountains east of the Mississippi River. They run through Kentucky, and I don't know where else. I'm not that familiar with the geography there. Oh, poor ditch. It's 84 degrees, 26C. I don't know. I don't know where in the Appalachians. It's on my phone. Let's see if my phone will give me the article. I guess in Clover Hollow. Blah, blah, blah. As usual, they go through a bunch of crap before they get to the point. This part of the Appalachians, what part? Sinking Creek, a side stream of the New River. That's what it says. The name of the river is the New River. Blah, blah, blah. Sinking Creek is a prehistoric tributary running west into blah, blah, blah. They aren't going to tell me. Early pioneers. Okay, apparently there's a water gap in the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia that shows the early remnants of an American colony. I think they mean the remnants of an early American colony. And their quest for finding rich, fertile land to farm. It is located at the base of Clover Hollow Mountain, and now it wants me to subscribe. I got rid of that. Clover Hollow, the western frontier of Virginia. Clover Hollow Mountain lay within the sacred hunting grounds of the Cherokee. Blah, blah, blah. Sinking Creek would have been, that's the name of it, Sinking Creek, would have been rushing rapids, falling 10 or 15 feet in elevation as it flowed past this spot. Well, you just have to look up the lost tribe of Clover Hollow. Try to find an article that isn't full of a bunch of fluff and nonsense. Oh, Philip found it on Ancient Origins and says it looks beautiful. Yeah, apparently the Appalachians are quite beautiful. Now, the mountain I'm on is apparently nothing like Appalachians. It's rugged and rocky and very angular. The Appalachians are gentler and more rounded. Well, whatever. Oh, Freeman spends too much money. Yeah, I try to focus on free stuff. Yes, Stitch, Clover Hollow. Well, that's nicer than the latest items in the news. Man. This was a time when I just had to come on and give you a chance to give your thoughts about recent events. Okay, now my coffee's empty, but I don't care. It's 10 o'clock at night. I was eating a homemade quesadilla, not the real thing, a, a flour tortilla with cheddar cheese, and I put it in the frying pan on a little bit of bacon grease and put a lid on the frying pan because I make them open face. Oops. Only one tortilla. Why have two slices of tortilla? That just kind of hides the flavor of the cheese. So I was asleep this afternoon. Well, the events were yesterday afternoon. I'm still kind of in shock. I kind of thought something like this might happen, but it's a shock when it does happen. And it's the usual a lone nut with a rifle. Oh, well, thank you, Ditch, for supporting my cooking videos. I haven't done any lately because it's been too darn hot to cook, but I should put up some kind of video. Yesterday morning, we got a brief downpour of monsoon rain. Didn't last long enough. Things were just damp, not wet. But it was cool enough to cook something on the stovetop. Didn't stay cool long enough to bake anything. And I had promised a lasagna to the guy who hauls my trash for free. So I did the stovetop part, made the sauce, and then I grated the cheese and cooked the noodles and put everything together and stuck it in the freezer because it can't be baked in this weather. It's hot enough without running an oven. Oh yeah, Freeman, the 20-year-old registered Republican but donated to the Democrats. I was thinking his eyeglasses looked more like Buddy Holly than Groucho Marx. Cooking homemade ice cream. Oh, I don't have the gadget for churning the ice cream. And I know it can be done with a silicone spatula and a lot of work, but I can't do it. Yeah, who knows? But I can't help thinking that somebody must have put him up to it. Yeah, I've been young and stupid, but never that idiotic. I tried to eat ice cream yesterday. It turned into soup, but I ate it anyway. It actually melted before I could eat it. Uh, and yep, one of the tragedies of the Vietnam War was that in the 1960s, young black men couldn't get jobs. Well, some could, but many of them had a choice, either turn to crime or join the military. So the good people, which was most of them, joined the military and ended up being cannon fodder. Ah, wow. When I was a child and my parents were really radical, there were meetings in our home. The John Birch Society, the Minutemen, and sometimes just weirdos with no particular affiliation. But also the weathermen, not meetings, but members of the weathermen would drop in from time to time. In other words, radicals on both sides. Well, Dad wasn't as into it as Mom. You know, he had a job and a family to support. And I have a feeling now that Mom was just looking for men to sleep with because she was always cheating on Dad. Yeah, the Weathermen were far left and the Minutemen were far right, and they'd both meet at our house or come to visit. The Weathermen didn't hold their meetings, but they'd come in and sit in on the Minuteman meetings. Yeah, and the John Birch Society was like toothless. All talk, no action. Now, Mom was extremely racist, and one Halloween, a black man came dressed like a KKK guy trick-or-treating, and Mom wasn't upset because he was black. She was upset because he was an adult. So he says, trick or treat, and Mom says, you're kidding. And the guy says, no, I'm not. So she gave him, I think we were giving out popcorn at the time, but she gave him some treats. It was, I guess, the scariest costume he could come up with was a white robe and a hood. And by the way, Mom almost married a black man. Go figure. At some point, she just gave up racism, so I guess it wasn't really a part of her as much as it was a public show. I don't know whether he was a Black Panther, but it was the time of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And it was when I saw two very nicely dressed Black ladies shopping at a local liquor store just to make sure that they were not discriminating, because that was a big part of the Civil Rights Act, that stores could not refuse service to people just because they had dark skin. And the liquor store was owned by a Korean couple. They did not have employees. So this Korean lady didn't mind at all. Hey, long as your money's good. But when I was younger, our next door neighbor had a Black maid who would come to Culver City by bus 3 or 4 times a week to clean Aunt Mary's house. See, adults who were safe were called aunt or uncle. She wasn't really my aunt or aunt, AUNT. Anyway, I think her name was Mrs. Bailey or Baker. We didn't call adults by their first names, but when she needed to go to the grocery store, she would invite all of us kids, all the children on the block, to go with her. And I didn't know at the time, but I learned later that no store would serve her or even allow her inside unless she came with white people. That was around 1960, 61. You know, things have really gotten better. Nobody's going to refuse to sell you stuff and take your money just because you have dark skin. No, Freeman didn't do such a thing. It's criminal and it's wrong. And besides, Mom's racism was all for show, it wasn't real. Oh, and by the way, Aunt Mary's maid, I think it was Bailey, Mrs. Bailey, actually had a nice home, a good husband and a daughter, and she was working just to supplement her husband's income so they could have a nice life. That was back when Watts was a thriving neighborhood before all the before it fell apart, in large part because they replaced the trains with buses, and men who worked all the way down in Long Beach couldn't get to and from work by bus because the schedules just didn't work out. The trains, the red cars, used to run every hour. It wasn't a problem. Also, the buses took a lot longer to get there. Mom actually took me on one of the last red cars, the trains, when I was 6 years old. Well, it turns out I might have been younger than that. I think I was 5. Well, it turns out that her real reason for taking the train was to meet a boyfriend. Told you she was always cheating on Dad. Oh, I remember the trolleys in Los Angeles. They had an upright pole that drew electricity from the overhead electrical lines. I got to ride on one once. And they ran all over Los Angeles in the shopping district. You could get to all the stores by trolley. And I think it was 5 cents to ride on one. Mom was a sick puppy. Nymphomaniac. Well, some people become adult earlier in life and others take forever, and some never grow up. Oh, I rode on a streetcar in San Francisco when Phil took me to the city. That's what they call it up north. As far as Northern Californians are concerned, San Francisco is the only city. Phil didn't like to travel, but he had to appear in court to finalize his divorce from Nancy. She divorced him, but he hadn't gone to court because he'd had to flee to Canada. And when we were in Fullerton, he got I don't know if it couldn't have been a phone call. We didn't have a phone. It must have been a letter from his attorney, or maybe a phone call to Dr. McNally at Cal State, who knew Phil. Anyway, it was like, you have to show up in court. Here's the date and time and location. So we couldn't pay our rent that month because we had to spend it on airline tickets and a hotel. So we stayed at the Hotel Franklin in San Francisco. Phil first asked about, I don't know, some other hotel, but it was way too much money. And we didn't have much money. But I got to explore a little bit of San Francisco. Yes, Ditch, Sam Clam's disco. No, not your heart. Your harp HARP. Have I told the story of Sam the Clam and Myrtle the Turtle? It bears telling again if I did. Sam the Clam and Myrtle the Turtle were in love, and they used to swim together and have a grand old time, but one day tragedy struck. There was a terrible tidal wave crashing onto the shore, and Sam the Clam and Myrtle the Turtle were killed. Well, Myrtle the Turtle found herself at the pearly gates, and she looked around and asked St. Peter, well, where's Sam the Clam? And Peter shook his head sadly and said, well, sorry, Myrtle, but Sam went to the other place. Anyway, Myrtle the Turtle entered through the pearly gates, and she was sitting on a cloud playing a harp. And she was okay for a while, but then she began to be sad, and tears were falling from her eyes onto her cheeks. So St. Peter asked her, Myrtle the Turtle, what's wrong? Aren't you happy in heaven? And she said, well, I just miss Sam the Clam. We were in love, you know. So St. Peter said, all right, I'll allow you to visit Sam the Clam, but you must be back by midnight when we shut the pearly gates, and you won't be able to come back in. So Myrtle the Turtle went down the ladder to the other place, and Sam the Clam was running a disco, and Myrtle the Turtle had a grand old time playing the harp and then dancing and just having a wonderful time at Sam Clam's disco. But then she began to hear the clock chime, and she realized that it was midnight and she had to go, and fast. So she grabbed the ladder and climbed up as fast as she could, huffing and puffing and out of breath, and she reached the pearly gates just in time. And St. Peter let her in and then shut the gates because it was midnight and the last bell had chimed. And then Myrtle the Turtle finally caught her breath, and she said, oh no! And St. Peter said, well, what's wrong? You made it, you're in heaven again. And Myrtle the Turtle looked up at him and said, I left my harp in Sam Clam's disco. I know I can't hear you laughing, but thanks for the drum roll, Ditch. Or is that what do they call it? When they hit the snare drum to emphasize a joke. Rim shot. Thank you, Ditch. Well, thank you, Who Knows, and welcome in. Oops, coffee cup's still empty. 10:26 p.m. on Bastille Day, basically French independence. Well, it's when they stormed the Bastille. which was a great big prison, because people would be imprisoned for years for stealing a loaf of bread. Yeah, July 14. 14 juillet. When I try to speak French, it ties my tongue in a knot. 14th of July. And by the way, Cinco de Mayo is not Mexican Independence Day. It celebrates a battle that they won. But their independence is in September. What did I say in French? I tried to say July 14. 14 juillet. 14 July. Remember, the Europeans and the English do everything backwards. Actually, it's Americans who do it backwards, but oh well. Things like they put the date and then the month. So if we say 0206, in American, it's February 6th, but in England, it would be the second day of June. 1972. Phil had only been back from Canada for a few months. When Nancy's attorney learned that Phil was back in the United States and they could have the hearing. And apparently they thought Phil had tons of money and they were going to get some. But Phil was destitute. As I said, we couldn't pay our rent that month. We had to fly up north and then take a taxi across the Golden Gate Bridge to the courthouse in Marin County. Well, Freeman and Philip and Ditch, I checked on Google and made sure Bastille Day is the 14th of July. Anyway, I gotta, let's see. I gotta check. I know Mexican Independence Day is in September, but I could be wrong, so, and I can't come up with the exact date, so let me see. September 16. So I had the right month. Mexican Independence Day is September 16. All government offices, banks, and schools are closed to make way for the many parades, civic ceremonies, and events across the country. I could be wrong, but I think that's when they kicked out Napoleon III, or I don't know, some European guy, some French guy. No relation to Napoleon, but that's what they called him. Oh, Alan Hynek published his whistleblower UFO book in 72. Huh. Oh, with input from Jacques Vallée. Oh, I finally found my book by Vallée about deception in the UFO stuff. Something of Deception. Messengers of Deception? I forget. I've been cleaning out my sheds. There are two of them, the wrecked shed and the one that isn't wrecked. Oh, Marie Antoinette was married to Louis XVI. They were both guillotined. Anyway, don't worry about it now, Freeman. Phil died with $1 million and the estate's attorneys frittered it away on stuff and nonsense. Well, the book, Philip, is humongous. It's like 600 pages, I think, something like that. Let me see if I can put my hands on it. Oh, man. Evil backed it. Oh, I'll need the flashlight because the lights at this end are not working. It isn't in that stack anyway, so where is it? I know I brought all these books in because I knew it was going to rain. Where'd I put that stack of books? For crying out loud. Maybe the leprechauns stole them. Criminy. Let's see. No. I know I had my hands on it. Just actually, it was yesterday. Okay, I have not stuck any books in there. The ones I stuck in here are not it. What have I done? Oh, I did find the missing cat treats. I knew I just bought them and couldn't find them. I found those today and lost Messengers of Deception. Where would I put it? Humph. This is weird. Oh, let me think. Yeah, the coffee has reached the end of the line, so I'll be back. Hang in there. I haven't found the Jacques Vallée book, but I did find a Robert Anton Wilson book. Everything is under control. Conspiracies, cults, and cover-ups. See, everything is under control. I never did have a chance to read this one. It's also a big, huge book. Almost 500 pages. I don't know what I did with the Jacques Vallée book. Well, for a short time I was not well off, but comfortably off, and I could afford to buy a book if I wanted one. And I just can't bring myself to throw out a book. Sometimes I sell one or give it away. Robert Anton Wilson, Everything is Under Control. Conspiracies, cults, and cover-ups. But the Jacques Vallée book was Messengers of Deception, and I know I have it. I just had my hands on it yesterday or the day before. It was day before yesterday when I brought in a bunch of books that were in the good shed, but not. I'm trying to get things out of there so I can find some things from the back of the shed. And since they were out of the shed and I didn't want to put them back, and it was going to rain in the morning, I brought several stacks of books into the house. Well, anyway, I'll come up with Jacques Vallée's book eventually. And this is rather old, actually. Let's see the copyright date. The Robert Anton Wilson. More light. $1998. To me, that seems like yesterday, but it's 26 years ago. Ah. There's a website where people do book exchanges. Well, I could look up book exchange on Google and find a site like that. A friend of mine kept admiring my book of ancient maps. Darn if I can remember the author's name, but it was all kinds of ancient maps, including, of course, the Piri race map and many others. Oh, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings was the title. I finally gave in and let her have it. Hmm. Wow. Well, at the moment, uh, I don't think I have any books to trade, but I have a big stack of books to read. Oh, water. It's still pretty darn hot. Uh, Once again, this big old red splotch is iodine. Don't worry about it. Well, before the crash of '08, which actually began in '07, I was, financially stable. I wouldn't say I was even upper middle class, but my car was paid for. My mortgage was negligible. Homeowner's insurance was $600 a year, which comes to $50 a month. I was doing okay. Well, Hollywood might have made $1 billion, but his heirs didn't make much off of Phil's works. Anyway, oh wow. I'm really tired. It's 11:15, way past my bedtime. But I couldn't not come online with all that's happening in the world. Yeah. Let's see, where'd the light go? I can't see the keyboard. Okay. Good night and sleep well. Wow. Freeman joined the military because his ex-mother said, "Well, goodbye. You're 18. Get out of here." Oh, yeah. It's been incredibly hot. We've broken records. I'm done with the heat. I moved to the mountains to get away from it. Oh, I know or knew a young man who had really terrible PTSD from his time in the military. They sent him to somewhere in South America. He wouldn't talk about it, but sometimes while he was sleeping, he'd have an attack of PTSD, a nightmare, and start screaming. Horrible. So anyway, you guys be good, be well, and hang in there. Yeah, the horror. I'm logging off too, guys. See you Thursday morning, if not sooner. Good night. And thank you all for coming in. See ya.